All right. I am here today with the fourth and final installment of the series that we've been working on called Ways to Pray. Throughout this series, we've been trying to just add to our normal type of prayer. There's nothing wrong with the "Dear God, please give me this, thank you for that" kind of prayers. But there are all kinds of other prayers out there too. So we've been trying to add to that type of prayer. And last week we discussed breath prayer. If you didn't see that, I asked that you go back and take a look at that one. That's one that has meant a lot to me. I'd love for you to check that out. This week I'm going to talk about one that, to be honest, it's kind of one that I've forgotten. Like, this is a method that I have used before, that I have found incredibly effective. That honestly, I just haven't done it in a while. There are lots of different types of prayer out there, and doing all of them would be pretty difficult. And this is one, kind of coming back and doing this series has me thinking that maybe I need to go back and do this one a little bit more. You've maybe heard of it before. It's called journaling. There's no hard rule about how prayer journaling has to be done, and all journaling obviously is not prayer, but journaling can be done in a way that is prayerful. There's no set way that you have to do it. All kinds of ways that it can be done. There's things that maybe things that you're struggling with. You can write about that. A list of things that you're thankful for. Personal prayers for special people in your life, just everyday things that are going on, but do it in a voice that is talking to God. A couple things that you want to make sure that you do if you're going to try prayer journaling. You want to write down when a prayer has been answered, so that you can kind of come back and see that and thank God for that. You also, kind of with that in mind, you want to make sure that you are dating your prayers, dating your journal entries. Those dates can kind of become significant, and you come back and see, like, oh wow, like 3 years ago this day I was struggling with this issue. Look how far I've come. So having that date there can be powerful when you come back to stuff later down the road. But definitely, that's kind of one of the point of journaling. One of the points is that you can come back to it. You can come back and see what you were praying for 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago. As time goes by, it gives you kind of a perspective into the way where you were at that time and the ways that God has worked in your life. To give you just another kind of little side story about journaling. In high school, one of my closest friends was this guy named Carlos, and he, my senior year, his junior year, I think, he was diagnosed with lung cancer, and he went through a year's worth of being treated, and he ended up in remission, and everything was good. I had gone off to college, and now it was his senior year, and I remember getting that call, one of the worst days of my life. Even though Carlos was in remission, he just wasn't feeling good one day, and so he went in and they did a screening and had him checked, and sure enough, the cancer had come back, and within 48 hours he was gone. It came back very aggressively and took his life very quickly. And the reason why I mention that is because he was a prayer journaler, and his family gave his prayer journals to the youth pastor to see if there was anything in there that he could maybe use as part of the eulogy at Carlos's funeral. And what he found as he was reading through those prayer journals was that, just day after day, Carlos was praying for his friends. It was weeks and weeks worth of entries without a single thing coming up about himself at all, and that turned out to be a very powerful thing in the eulogy for so many people who were in that room, to know that Carlos had been praying for them. There's nothing wrong with your prayer journals being about yourself. Typically, journals are. So not saying that you're selfish if your prayers are at least a little bit about you. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just one example of how how journaling can become a very powerful thing. And that's not a reason to journal so that people can use it as at your eulogy. God forbid something happens to you, they can use it as part of your eulogy at your funeral. I wouldn't encourage that to be a reason behind it, but it's just one more thing of just so many reasons of why journaling can be such a powerful thing. But I don't want to push the idea that you should journal so that if something happens to you, we can read your stuff later. But it's an example of how many amazing dimensions there are to prayer journaling that we really don't even think about. So consider giving it a try. I know this is kind of a hard one to talk people into doing. At least it's hard to talk me into it. I just hear the word journaling. It doesn't get me excited. Ooh, yeah, let's journal. Like that, it doesn't even, and I love to write, but something about journaling just doesn't get me excited. It just sounds tedious and time consuming when I think about it. But my experience with journaling has been just the opposite. It's been a very freeing, very powerful form of trying to express my feelings and talk to God and be in communication with the Creator. So again, this is the end of the series. It doesn't mean that there aren't more ways to pray out there. I didn't cover Lectio Divina in depth, or the Jesus prayer, centering prayer, or the ACTS methods of prayer. All kinds of other stuff out there. Give the methods in this series a try, see what they do for you, explore what else might be out there, see what other options there are that you might like, but just pray, right? It's hard to claim a relationship with someone that you never talk to, right? So don't let your relationship with God be one of those relationships of just kind of an acquaintance sort of relationship, or one of those even worse, just long lost friends kind of relationships where you were close or you want to be close, but you're just not anymore because there's no communication. Prayer is that line of communication, and it's our job to come before God and to offer ourselves up and to seek out those lines of communication so that we can talk to God and have that kind of tight relationship with God. So find a way to make God your best friend. That happens through conversation. It happens through prayer. Enough talk. Go do it. Amen.